Morning. Welcome to Coffee with Captain Pete, bedtime stories with Bethune, depending on where you are in the world. Special guest today, Erik Crown.
Good morning.
Erik, it's been a crazy journey that sees you here in the Philippines with me, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. It's been a long and very crazy journey.
So we're in a few minutes we're going to talk about last night's patrol, which was absolutely crazy. We're in the Philippines. We did patrols. We've been working with this Navy SEAL team here. And morning, Angie. And crazy nights. We're going to touch on that in a minute. Anyway, Erik here has arguably the best work story I've ever heard. So for those of you who don't know Erik, he's the editor that helps me on these campaigns. So those of you who watch the videos from the Amazon, he was the guy that filmed them and edited them. And so we had almost 3 months in the Amazon with me, and now he's been crazy enough to come back. Normally I burn the cameraman out after one go. So Erik is back. Erik,
well, I did have a few months to recover.
Tell us your work story, because the people have got to hear this one.
I work on a lot of documentaries, and I was working on one where I actually followed a con man. And I followed the con man, and he went down to Mexico.
What made you choose a con man?
He was a guy that said, I'm a big concert promoter, and I'm going to bring all this music down to Mexico. We're going to do the first big live, reggae show down there. It's going to be amazing. And so I said, I got to see this. So I followed him down. And,
why did you want to follow a con man?
Because I wanted to see if he would get away with it or not.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And what happened next?
But he didn't know that I knew that he was a con. So we went down. We were in Mexico for a month or two. And the guy was conning everybody in the town. He conned the mayor, all the local bigwigs, all the big families. And, he got all this money from them. And then in the middle of the night, he just left. And he was gone. And so I was left there alone. And because I was really nice with the families that were there, they basically said, hey, we will let you leave eventually, but you have to now throw a concert here in Mexico.
How many reggae concerts have you thrown at the stage?
So far, 0. They wanted a festival too, not just a concert. They wanted like 5, 6, 7 bands. So they ended up, we weren't allowed to leave the country for about 6 months. So we were nicely held hostage in Mexico for about 6 months until we could somehow throw a concert with no money and no Mexican bands. So yeah,
So who'd you get in the end? You didn't get Bob Marley, presumably.
Right. No, we got a couple good bands from Tijuana, and they showed up. And then the funny thing is, a lot of the Rastas would not come across the border because their paperwork might be a bit dodgy, so they wouldn't cross the border. So we had a hard time getting them in.
This is the great advantage of working with Rastas, eh? They can't get out.
Keep them in.
Yeah.
And they have 3 checkpoints set up in Mexico along the one road. Basically, the family owns those toll booths. So as soon as we would get to one, we'd be turned right around. So we weren't allowed to go anywhere.
So you had 6 months there.
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months held hostage in Mexico. That is a good work story. All right, I see we've got Elise online. Elise DeFore, is that how you say your name?
Hey, Elise. Yeah.
So, in fact, it's a crazy journey that has seen Erik end up here with me. How did this all start?
For me, what happened was about 2005. I found a tumor, and then it turned out to be cancerous. So they went in and did a big surgery. I couldn't walk for about 6 months. I had to do a recovery. And then they said, you know what,
What sort of cancer?
They aren't 100% sure. I have a really unique form of cancer. It grows from my spine, basically. So the doctors were all amazed. So they would have groups of doctors come in and look at me.
Our talk started off really, really happy, and now suddenly it's descended down into cancer. It's got a happy ending, though, hopefully.
It does, yeah.
Okay, so you've got a cancer that they don't know about, and it's on your spine.
Yeah, and they're baffled. So they said, we need to do another surgery. And what happened was for about 10 years, I had about 8 surgeries, and they still don't know what kind of cancer it is, and it's still here. I still have it.
So so they were giving you operations and cutting it out?
Yeah. They would just find a new tumor, go cut it out, pull it out, and then call me 6 months later and say, we found another piece. Come back in. So after all those surgeries, I was a lot in recovery. So while I was in recovery, I'd watch a lot of TV, and I saw Whale Wars, which made me think, oh man, I got to go out and try to help. And then I saw your episode where you guys, had your event.
I tell you, I reckon one of the greatest things that Whale Wars has done is it convinced so many people to get involved in conservation. Like it was really, really useful in terms of putting whaling as an issue in the public domain and putting it on the map. And you need to really realise the public only has an appetite for so many issues. And it used to be society as a whole was like that. There was only so many issues, and typically it's about kind of 8 or 10. So you might sort of have something like human rights or women's rights or whaling in Antarctica or at any given time there's only about 7 or 8 issues. At the moment you say Syria has kind of come in, probably at the expense of something else. What's happened now with media is it has disintegrated a bit, and these given communities will have maybe 7 or 8 issues that they care about. But the great thing about Whale Wars, it really put whaling on the map, and it inspired so many people to go getting involved in conservation. Not just through Sea Shepherd or Greenpeace who were involved prior to Whale Wars, but in all sorts of things. And I'm the beneficiary of that. Okay, so you saw Whale Wars, decided you wanted to get out and do something with your life.
I've got to help. And at that point I couldn't really walk. I couldn't really I couldn't really do much, so I was
You couldn't walk, so what were you doing, lying in bed?
Yeah, I was in bed for about 3 months of this one. So I got an opportunity to go do some editing on the Shark Boat with Captain Chris Wade. And so I went down there.
Captain Chris Wade.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, for those who don't know Chris Wade, there's this crazy story. So there was this Daryl Farmer who I'm catching up with in UK in a couple of months, and we're going to go catching badgers and inoculate them against TB so the farmers don't kill them. Anyway, he rowed across the Atlantic, and on the first attempt, he left from, might have been Monterey or somewhere up there, in California somewhere. He left, but they hadn't done, the organisers of this event hadn't done very good predictions on the wind patterns. And the winds basically just kept pushing him back on shore. And when you're a one-man rowing team, I'd call it more controlled drifting rather than rowing. Like you do, to be fair, you do a lot of rowing, but you're much more dependent on the wind. And he just kept getting blown back towards land. And then it got to a stage where his boat was going to be in on the rocks, and there was a sort of 25 to 30 knot winds, like pretty strong. Up near San Francisco in that area, they get this wind, it kicks in for a considerable time of the year. So anyway, poor old Daryl is about to end up going on the rocks. I had a whole bunch of the Earthrace people there, and I posted it on my page, is there anyone who can help? And Captain Chris Wade stepped up. Interesting story about Chris Wade. So here's a guy who puts it all on the line. So he had this boat called Shark Boat that he'd bought off, it was one of the universities, I think might have been San Diego University, one of them. They had this research vessel, and he bought this, so he bought the boat, and he was doing shark research. I think his most famous video, there's that lady called Ocean Ramsey who has this epic video of her swimming with this great white shark, and she's kind of reached out like this, hanging on to this fin of the great white shark, and it became viral on YouTube, and enormous number. And there's some great photos that they screen dumped off this thing as well. So anyway, Captain Chris Wade had this boat, and like many of us, he wanted to kind of sell up and go and save the world. And what he did was he went down to Costa Rica, and he was wanting to go out to Cocos Island. So I sort of helped him a little bit in terms of saying, you work with this and do that and things like that. So anyway, he sold up everything and went down to Mexico, and Erik was the cameraman. In fact, when I met you, it was just before Chris was going to head down to Costa Rica, wasn't it?
That's
like
right,
you were
yeah.
a few months away.
He was prepping, huh?
And Elise Dufoy, is that how you say your name? It looks French.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm probably butchering her name.
Elise, is that right?
But anyway, so Elise was on the boat as well, who's online here, and you were on there, and there was a cameraman, Blaine.
Yep.
He was on there too. There was a bunch of, we met a really cool bunch of people on the boat. We had the party on Shark's boat, on Chris's boat. Anyway, so that was where I first got to meet Erik, and we nearly took Erik on season 2 of The Operatives. In fact, it was a party we had for the launching of The Operatives TV show. And we had this big party. I was awfully naughty on this night. Trust me, my behaviour was appalling. It has happened on occasion. I'm still highly embarrassed about what happened there, and trust me, we ain't going there. But anyway, so that was where I first got to meet Erik. and then he's managed to come into my clutches, and he hasn't escaped.
That's true.
Okay, so the cancer. Just go back to the cancer.
Okay.
You did actually. So what happened to the cancer? So because you went on chemo, didn't you?
Yeah, right after I had first met you at Captain Chris's, then they put me on chemo, and when I met you, I had a big beard, and you know,
he looked like Grizzly Adams.
a little too much gray in it, but it was.
At least if I loved the lap dance, that was from then on. That's mine, mate. Okay, so what happened with the cancer?
So I went on.
So the chemo didn't work, or something.
Well, I was on chemo, and life was just too difficult. You know, you get seizures every day, muscle spasms. It was just too painful.
When you say a seizure, like epileptic seizure, or
no, like all of your muscles just contract at once, so you can't move. Your body just goes, "Gah," and you're just. That's it. So you're just stuck.
So how long might this go for?
I was on chemo for a year and a half.
But how long does the seizure last for?
Oh, they last you anywhere from like 30 seconds to about 2 minutes. Super painful. What the chemo
so is it like cramp?
Depletes all the protein and all the potassium out of your muscles and all the liquids. So yeah, so they were horrible.
So you did chemo for how long?
And I was a year and a half. And
a year and a half on chemo.
I told the doctor, I said, man, I can't handle these painful, seizing up of my muscles.
Was it curing the cancer?
Well, that's actually a good question. Nobody really knows, because when they cut out a certain amount of it, they told me we can't cut out anymore, because it's too dangerous. So we're going to try to use the chemo, shrink it down.
Was it too dangerous?
It was mixed in with all of my nerve endings, and they said it could have caused paralysis because it's all right on the spine. So their idea was shrink it with chemo. Right afterwards, I went back to get an MRI, and it hadn't grown. But nobody really knows if that was from that. But a year and a half into it, they just said, hey, that's what chemo is. So at that point, I decided I would rather just stop it. Take whatever my time, my time is, and use that as my motivation to get out there.
Terminal?
No. I'm very lucky in the sense that it's not immediately dangerous, but if I don't handle it, it will grow and eventually overtake everything. Okay, so I'm hoping it's just sitting there now.
What are you doing now?
Well, you mean health-wise, or
like you've been 3 years, and it has, like, before it was growing quite rapidly. Mm-hmm. You did a bit of chemo. It didn't kill it off. You still had the cancer on your spine, and here you are today.
Yeah.
So like the doctor's report said it stopped growing. What are you doing?
So what I decided to do was to go vegetarian and stop eating any kind of industrialized food at all. And I don't even know if that was part of what helped stop it or with the chemo, but as a result, like I said, about 4 years now, it hasn't grown, which is nice.
So in 4 years it hasn't grown. And what he's done is he's gone vegetarian and no processed foods.
Yep, and not fully vegan, but vegetarian, and
So you do wonder whether that is something that was promoting it or accelerating the growth of the. Like, is that what you reckon?
Because before I stopped eating meat, all I ate was steak, burgers, meat. So I think it's probably a combination of toxins. Between the food. I mean, your food is your medicine. It is your energy. It's your whole life, and people don't treat it as that. They often treat it as a convenience or something to have, that I want this, it'll make me feel better, it tastes good. But food's a medicine. And for me, it has been a full medicine.
So you hear from Angie, she says, I think it helps. Mum has cancer and I changed her diet and she's still with us.
Oh, that's great.
And I do, that cancer's such a complex thing too. And here's something to keep in mind, cancer is like, fish in the sea. There's so many different types of them. And it might have helped your cancer. Not to say it's going to help everyone's cancer,
right? But
maybe it's something that people should go considering. I remember with my mum, she passed away from cancer a couple of years ago, and she had ovarian cancer. Was quite advanced by the time they figured it out. Despite it, she'd been to the doctors a couple of times before, saying, I've got this, lump here, and I'm feeling a bit crook or whatever. But anyway, I tried getting her to take cannabis oil. Let's just say Mum wasn't overly enamoured with taking cannabis oil. But a lot of people do swear by cannabis as a cure for things. Hey, I've got to say, I hung out with the guy who was the engineer on Earthrace many years ago. I hung out with him a couple of months ago up in Portland, and he took us to a cannabis shop. where they sell the cannabis. Unbelievable. It's like going into a lolly shop. It's sort of like, there's this one here. There was probably, it must have been 400 or 500 different brands of it. Most of it, a lot of it was in resin. I'm not a big smoker, to be honest. I'm not really a fan of drugs. Very occasionally I might sort of have a puff on a thing as joint as it's getting passed around. That's about my limit, really. It doesn't really do much for me, but for some people it does a lot for them. But anyway, a lot of people do swear by cannabis as something that can help cancer, and I don't know if it's going to help or not, to be honest.
It helps. I mean, I think it helps maybe physically, but one thing it definitely does is helps mentally, because when you're on your chemo and you're really down in the dumps, get a little bit of pain relief from like the CBD, the cannabis oil, but also a mental sort of you get a little bit of hope back. You start to lose hope when you're on cancer, when you're on chemo.
Hey, we've got Christina Trujillo online here, so she probably won't mind me talking about this because it is on her page. So she came to New Zealand a few years ago. She also came down to Costa Rica, and I remember thinking Christina she went down to Costa Rica on the turtle campaign, and the turtle campaign is quite difficult actually, in the sense that you're in this very remote place on this beach, and it's amazing in the sense that you are the one little cabiny shack on this beach of about 7 or 8 kilometres, but it's kind of relentless. Like, you're patrolling this beach every single night. The locals are trying to raid the eggs. You've got to beat the armadillos, the locals, the raccoons, all of these things. So Christina went down there, and I was thinking it was going to be a train wreck in terms of her just not fitting in. She proved me wrong, and she went down there and she absolutely loved it. And it's not to say she found it easy, like it was quite difficult. Anyway, the reason I mentioned Christina is that she's going through cancer at the moment,
Sorry, Christina.
she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe hers is terminal, and it is going to take her. And that, I think she's sort of towards the end. It's been, it's funny when you got a friend like that, and you see this very difficult journey of them as physically they start to deteriorate, and so you're one of the success stories. So if you know anyone who's got cancer, as a suggestion, go to a vegetarian diet in your case, and cut out processed foods.
Yes.
Have there been any byproducts of that? Have you struggled in any way?
Yeah, definitely. As far as changing over the diet, yeah, it's it was really difficult. Well, when I became a vegetarian, I didn't eat any vegetables, so it wasn't a very successful start. It was mostly pizza and stuff. But I ended up gaining a bunch of weight, so I was at my heaviest ever. And that was the day that Mr. Bethune said
250 pounds. Holy cow! You're lucky. He's actually lost a lot of weight, are you? At 250 pound, he had a big engine on. I bet you were big everywhere.
I went in super out of shape, and I've been on the Bethune weight loss system.
So
since.
I got to tell you the story. So this guy, I took him to the Amazon last year, right? And so this was we started off in Iquitos, and we had a mission there to rescue a dolphin. So it's one of the things when we're going to rescue a dolphin mission, you can't actually fundraise for it, because you can't say, hey, we're going to go and save this dolphin at such and such. And so it was a very difficult mission to run, and we were well underfunded on it, really. But anyway, so I had this great idea. We was going to go and rescue a pink dolphin in captivity in Peru. And Erik came along, and we had about, was it maybe 4 or 5 other volunteers, I think. So anyway, I got there a bit earlier than the rest, and then Erik arrives before the rest of the volunteers. So we would sneak in at night to this dolphinarium, and so I'd go in there and have it under surveillance or whatever. Anyway, Erik arrives, and we have to go through probably about 1.5 kilometres of bush. So we can't go in the main gate because there's security guards there, right? So we would go in around the back and sneak in behind, and then my plan was we'd go down to the swimming pool and just do it as a recon. So when the whole team arrives, we could go in and grab this dolphin and carry it 1.5 kilometres, put it in a car, take it to a boat, take it 200 miles away to another country and rehabilitate it. What could possibly go wrong with that? Anyway, so anyway, Erik joins me, and on this night, all we've got to do is in fact, I just wanted to get in the swimming pool and have an hour in there and watching them do the security guard. So it was going to be a very low profile night. Anyway, we got to within probably about 100 metres of the guard's house as we're sneaking in down the back. We have walked, if you're lucky, 1 kilometre, to be generous to Erik, and he starts getting sick, right? He's like, and then this dog starts barking over the security guards, and I'm, shh, shh, shh. And he's like, oh, give me a drink. So I give him a Powerade, right, and they just bounced. Oh my God. And it was so bad. And considering there hadn't really been any hills, we hadn't carried a single dolphin at the stage. And it did make me wonder at the time, this is going to end in a train wreck. And so from there, Erik, I think it was probably a catalyst for you to, because of that. So you've been vegetarian for a while then, though.
Yeah, about 6 years now.
So you've been vegetarian 6 years, and yet he was still at his fighting weight of 250 pounds. And like, you were appalling to be, like, I don't want to be harsh on you, but you were appalling. And I remember thinking physically, you were a wreck.
Yeah.
You know, for you to be able to, I mean, to be fair, it was hot, and we were having to sneak quietly. And to go really quietly, you do use a bit of energy. But it was a disgrace. So anyway, I think that was something that spurred Erik on. And I remember saying to him at the time, like, if you was ever going to come on another campaign, I cannot have Jabba the Hutt go around on a campaign with me, because there's all the time you need to go walking distances and stuff. And but anyway, so you were 250. What are you now?
210.
210.
And I
there
lost
you go.
almost all that weight in Peru with you, and
I put him on this harsh program. Here's the thing: I have my three candidates who Jason and I kind of advise. With Erik, it's more just me really, and it's not just a case of being vegan or being vegetarian. It's a lot more complicated than that. But the main thing, there's two things I reckon. One is carbs. You need to cut out carbs. And the second thing is processed foods. As soon as you're having processed foods, so much sugar in that stuff. A lot of people go thinking it's exercise. And trust me, if you want to lose weight, it's not about exercise at all. You want to exercise because it will make you healthier. But generally what happens with exercise is someone exercises, they do get a bit healthier, but their body gets more hungry. So then they go eating more, and they think, it's okay to eat more because I've exercised today. And so the weight loss thing, I think here's some things I've found. A lot of people, and trust me, there'll be 10 people online now who have tried to lose weight and struggle with it at different times in life. So many people struggle with this, but the human nature is we want to take the pill. And that's the thing, and we don't go hungry. And my feeling on this is you have to go hungry. There's no free lunch on losing weight. And so if I've got a lady back in New Zealand who I advise, and she lost 20 kilos in a year, which is about the maximum. Like ideally, you want to be losing about a kilo a month, or say 2.5 pounds per month. It's sort of the healthy way, but. Anyway, this lady, she went all out. And I said to her, you need to be hungry for at least 2 to 3 hours a day. So she has her hungry period is 3 till 6. And then at 5 in the afternoon, she's chewing her fingernails. And she used to do, and at the start, she would do little things like she had these crackers sitting in the cupboard. And so 3 o'clock would roll on and she'd just go and have a cracker, another cracker, then there'd be peanuts and other things. And so that was what was killing her. So at the start, she wasn't losing anything. And so it was because of the snacking in the afternoon. First, it's crackers, highly processed. And so once we got rid of the snacking, and if you want something to eat, go and eat some celery. Then it was not that appealing, or go and eat some carrot. But do a couple hours. Here we go, Elise says, no, I didn't go hungry at all. She's proven me wrong. There may be the odd exception to it. But anyway, so you've gone from 250 down to 210. So he has lost 20 kilos, and that pretty much, you whipped that off in Peru mostly, didn't you?
Yeah, that was
a period of 3 months. How long were you hungry for?
Like 90% of it. Well, at first I got mad at you because you'd steal all my bread off my plate.
Yeah, whatever. We'd go to breakfast, right? And there was a couple of really nice places we had for breakfast. It's funny, in years to come, at the time on the Amazon campaign, it was a difficult campaign. And actually, I should finish off the dolphin story. So we got the volunteers arrived, and we're going to do this rescue mission. And in the end, we lacked muscle power. You got this dolphin's 200 kilos, and so I needed people who could lift the dolphin out. And so, in the end, I realised we didn't have the strength in the team. If I had 4 guys like Matt and Tim, and Phil, and if I had Stefan, those guys off the campaign, we would have been able to do it. But in the end, I had sort of volunteers who weren't as physical, and I kind of underestimated the hike and everything to be carrying this dolphin. I remember I built this crane. The fact that I didn't have the team that could lift the dolphin out, I built this big tripod thing. I wonder if there's any photos of that floating around. This thing was the craziest thing I've ever built, and it was like this great big tripod with one of the motor pivots they use on the back of the boats on the long shaft engines. That thing there with this big long arm, and this thing where I could get the heavy guys. He'd come in.
I was literally the same weight as the dolphin.
That's right. We were practicing one night. This is where I realised that we lacked muscle power. So there was a guy in LA who made the sling for us, and we had this between these two big long bits of bamboo. So we had the sling there. Erik was the dolphin, so he had to lie in this dignity gone, and he'd lie down on the sling, and then we got the team to lift this thing up, and like we weren't carrying Erik very far. Yeah, that was when and so it was about that. So then I realised I need to go and build this crane to lift it out. And then you could just have the big guys on the back of the crane just putting weight down, turn it round, then the dolphin's out. Then we've got to carry this dolphin about 1.5 kilometres, and so then I realised there's no way that team could carry it, and so I built this cart, but there's all these logs along the track and vines, and so I'm busy there hacking out every night. I go and I spend my night there and hacking out this trail, and then the next day I do a bit more of the trail to widen it up or whatever. And then there was the fatal night, was when we were going in there. I think it was still a recon. We weren't going to steal the dolphin at this stage. And the shaft on this, so we had, I think Erik was the weight on the end of this thing, and we were seeing how much we could lift this thing up. And the steel shaft bent. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to end in a train wreck. So those of you who've seen the videos from Peru, we never actually put any of that online. In fact, here's Fernando is online. He was there. In fact, he was one of the guys who was there helping us, and yeah, he was awesome on campaign.
He was great.
There was a remember. He probably won't mind me mentioning it, but there was the time, I think it was early in the morning. It was a very tough night, and it was on the night we got absolutely monstered by mosquitoes. And the next day, but Fernando was driving the boat. So these long shaft boats are quite tricky. So you've sort of got this. It's got this like 2.5 metre trail behind with the propeller spinning here. And you're on the front of this thing moving the boat around, and the boat's, because it's long and skinny, it takes a lot of leverage, so you're like, ugh. And if you get a little bit out, it takes a long time to correct. So anyway, Fernando goes on the back of this thing, everyone's grumpy, everyone's tired, everyone's had enough of this Amazon nonsense, and he ran over this fishing net. And the net, like, it's got all these buoys across it, right? Yeah. And then I hear this dig. I look up, and here's this trail of net all wound around. What did you drive over that for? And he's like, I've driven over a few already. Yeah, but that was one crazy. In fact, was that Angry Crew Day?
I think that was Angry Crew Day. Yeah,
so on this day, so after we abandoned the dolphin mission, what I decided to do was. We also had this plan to go and document what was happening on the pink dolphin on the river, and so we decided we've got this boat for the next 2.5 months or whatever. Let's just go and travel the Amazon and see what stuff we can find, and it turned into an epic campaign. Yeah. For those of you who don't know what happened, so we stumbled into the illegal pet trade, and it led us all the way to Macapa in Brazil, 3,500 kilometres from where we started on the campaign. So one of those things on these campaigns, you kind of need to be open to where they go. You go in thinking that, oh yeah, we're working on the pink dolphin, and yet the trail leads you somewhere else. And it was something I learned on the operatives. There was in the first campaign, the turtle mission, which became one of the standout episodes of Series 1. It just happened upon us on the way. Hey, let's start filming this and see what happens. And the Amazon, there's an amazing story to be had out of that. And Erik's working on cutting that into a documentary, which I think we have about probably half of the story. And what it needs for us to finish it is we're going to go back there and bust the traders. And after I got knifed, it put a bit of a dampener on campaign, and we flew out. But we are hopefully going back into this year to work on those traders. Hopefully none of them are watching this live video. Morning, Kirsha. Kirsha's our hedgehog lady.
Good morning, Kirsha.
Kirsha has, so New Zealand hedgehogs are a pest. If you're in Britain, they're not a pest because they're native there. They're not native to New Zealand, and they go killing our birds, right? And then so Kirsha lives in this little wee town called Oxford. It's probably only got 500 people live in this town, right? We've also got Scotty Bowman there, big Scotty. He's tried to lose weight numerous times, and he bounces back. His fighting weight, man, you was a little pussy compared to him, mate. He would probably, his fighting weight would be over 300.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so anyway, Scotty's not online, thankfully. So anyway, Kirsha is out there saving hedgehogs, but the hedgehogs are not very good for the wild bird life, right? And you got Scotty saving the birds, and so Scotty's like, what are you doing saving hedgehog? Kirsha she works at Oasis Healthcare, Oasis Skincare, I think it is. So they make a whole lot of products, and they flew me down to the end of year sort of conference thing last year. That was where I got to meet Kirsha for the first time, and you could see Scotty was a little bit Kirsha and her hedgehogs. She got pretty cute little animals, actually. She got some pretty cool photos of her with those. Anyway.
Glad somebody's out there helping them.
So anyway, so that finishes so we've covered the Amazon, we've covered your cancer. Tried, if you know anyone's got cancer, I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure Christina did do something like this too. Pretty sure she changed her diet and went very healthy, but sometimes it's like I said before, different cancers, it's kind of like fish. There's so many different varieties, and what works for one person may not work for another. But
before we go on, I do want to say, the idea of beating cancer is, for a lot of us physically, we're never going to beat it, but you can beat it mentally, and a lot of people that go through it find their own way to kind of do that. For me, it was to be able to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to go around the world and follow this crazy guy around, and and see what I can do.
It's funny how prevalent. Well, it's not funny, but how prevalent cancer is now. So so my father died of mesothelioma, which is a cancer on the lung lining. He got that from asbestos in his 20s, so he died at 80 something. So 60-year latency for that to come in. So he died of cancer, and his was quite prolonged. My mum died of ovarian cancer, and hers was even worse. Like mum's cancer was at the end of it, like her dignity was completely gone. It was, and I remember I sort of spent quite a lot of time over the last year. I was really fortunate with my work. I could spend quite a bit of time with her, but it's difficult watching your loved ones go down like that, And now, I've kind of witnessed it online with Christina and her battle with cancer, and I've got you. Like, it's amazing how prevalent cancer is now, and I do wonder whether there is. I think there's a couple of things going on here. One is that we are living longer, and I remember a friend of mine many years ago who was a doctor, and he said your average person has something like 10 major genetic flaws in them, but historically most of them never showed up. Now, because we're living much older, he said a lot of them are starting to come through and show up. And so something like, for example, prostate cancer in men, I think from the time you turn 50, there's a 10% increase in the number of men who will catch cancer with every 10 years. And so now this doctor explained to me, he said everyone has on average 10 major flaws, and he said there might be the odd freak of nature. Increasingly they're recognising these through your DNA, and for example there's that one that Angelina Jolie, I think, had a breast removed.
That's right.
Because she had the gene that was very likely to go giving her breast cancer. You sort of find, probably breast cancer would be the most common one in women, prostate cancer with men. One of my family diagnosed with prostate cancer recently, and his one, it's by the time they got onto it. So he was getting these it used to be to pick it, they used to poke a finger up your bum, right?
If I'd done that, I would have gone for a test.
So anyway, I had it done once, and my eyes watered out, and it's sort of like, I think women get used to that with the pap smears. So women are used to it, I think a woman is, I don't know if they ever get used to it, but it happens to them a lot more because they go in every year or 2 years for a pap smear in New Zealand. Not sure anyway. So they used to having their bits, and having babies, doctors all over that stuff. With the men, it's like we don't really have to expose that, and suddenly you hit 50 and right, I'm going to poke my finger up your bum now. So now they do this blood test, and so the blood test picks up some kind of antigen or something in the blood, but it's not a guaranteed thing to tell if you've got prostate or not. But with this family member of mine who's been diagnosed with it, when they faffed around for 3 months, then they went and did the test, and all 12 samples came back positive for cancer. And so, but with prostate cancer, a lot of people do manage to manage it. So, I think estrogen is, I think they take estrogen to reduce, so testosterone can help accelerate prostate cancer. And I think he might be doing seaweed. Oh no, cucumber. I think sea cucumber. Whether there's any merit to that or not, because I'm not a fan of the sea cucumber thing. The sun's much better on you, isn't it? My face is all dark. It looks like I've been tanning here, doesn't it? Anyway, let's not. I think we've spent enough time on cancer.
Sounds good.
And to finish that off, Christina, we all wish you well on your journey with cancer. And I know it's been a very, very tough battle for you, and I admire the way you've talked about it. And in some ways, I think that when people talking about it does help others who are dealing with those issues. And another lady, Alicia, on here, who came to the. In fact, you met her in Santa Monica at that. What's that event? Oceanwise.
Voices for Oceans.
Voices for Oceans, where I spoke at. Yeah. Anyway, she's got a different condition she's going through, but it is. I think it helps other people deal with it sometimes. Rightio. So we've covered Mr. Crown, haven't we? We just checked the Dolphin story,
pretty
work
much
story.
In a nutshell there.
Oh no, actually that's right. So tell us about this movie you made.
So the other part of the journey is I originally moved to Los Angeles to try to work on a reggae documentary. We just finished it this year. It's got some unreleased Bob Marley, and it's basically about the world's largest reggae archive, but it's not in Jamaica. It's in Los Angeles.
It's in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's in a white guy's basement in Los Angeles instead of being where it was created. And his goal is to actually get it back to Jamaica. So he's spent the last 20 years trying to take this massive collection. It's got about 600,000 items, the rarest albums of Bob Marley in the world.
What is the rarest album?
The rarest album is called Selassie is the Chapel, and there's 26 versions of it.
Selassie
26
is the Chapel.
copies left, yeah.
Have you heard it?
Yeah. Actually, because of the guy that I followed, Roger Steffens, he released it on the Songs of Freedom box set, Bob Marley box set. For that box set, they actually went to this guy's house and spent about 4 or 5 weeks just digging around all of his 45s and tapes, and came out with that Songs of Freedom compilation. So
it's all sitting in this guy's house.
Yeah, it's just sitting there, collecting dust, fading away.
Just albums?
Albums, tapes. Plus, he was a DJ, so he got to interview everyone in reggae, including Bob Marley and some other people. So he's got basically the whole history of the music and the back history of the music as he interviewed everybody throughout the last 30, 40 years.
There's something really interesting I remember you telling me when we first started talking about this movie of yours, about how reggae, like Jamaica now, sort of is a celebration of reggae in some ways, and yet it wasn't always like that, was it?
It's true. They really hated the Rastas. So as soon as Jamaica became an independent country, the first thing they did was go in and basically slaughter an entire Rasta camp as a statement. Literally the first day they were an independent country. So as a result, they would beat the Rastas, put them in prison. And so the music spread around the world and didn't really root in Jamaica. And what they did was they brought in music that's a little bit more about, guns, drugs, things that are a little bit more like kind of like gangster rap style music there now. So there's what he has is what's called roots reggae, which is, music about being the best you can be, music about, self-enlightenment and topics like that.
Was he an amazing man or... Bob Marley?
Bob Marley was incredible. Yeah,
he made a few good records.
Well, here's the thing about Bob Marley that's amazing. Well, there's two things that are amazing, and I didn't know any of this before I started the project. But he's one of the only artists that's internationally recognized, and people around the world take his image and change it to match their needs. So for example, in Burma, I've seen pictures of Bob Marley where his eyes have been he's been repainted as a Burmese citizen.
Oh wow.
You know, there's wars where both sides of the war will listen to Bob Marley songs before they go to war, both feeling that they're doing the right thing. So Bob Marley's actually his words have taken root in every single country, and there's nowhere in the world where you cannot find Bob Marley. And that's very unique. And then the other thing he did is he never kept any of his money. He supported over 6,000 people from his living. So every week about 6,000 people would line up at his house, and he would just write checks, and support everybody.
Wow.
And he died with almost no money. So people think the Marley is a massive thing, but actually Bob could care less and gave away most of it. Yeah, so
I think his family less so. So you've got his kids now who basically inherited everything. So there's Ziggy Marley, isn't there, who still tours a bit?
Ziggy and Steve and Damian Marley's the biggest one now. But he's actually picked up Bob's kind of message and is trying to bring people back into that conscious roots message.
Maybe there was a friend of mine, Tiki Tane in New Zealand, who's probably one of the, you probably hate me saying it, but he's one of the elder statesmen of New Zealand music now. Like, and he was part of this group Salmonella Dub that largely pioneered the dub sound out of New Zealand. And there was a concert put on. They did a Bob Marley tribute thing. So there was about 20 musicians who all chipped in and came and did this concert. This was at a vineyard, and Larissa, who's my ops manager, she was there, and I think they organised. I think Tiki gave us free tickets to or something. But anyway, I remember going along, and you've got all of these brown musicians, and then you've got all these wealthy white people watching this Bob Marley tribute thing. I'm thinking there's something going on. Like it is. His music does cross over all demographics, and it's. I mean, there was something interesting with Tiki too. He was like, he got to choose whatever songs he wanted. He said, and he did. I think he did stand up. Is it Get Up, Stand Up for Your Rights? Yeah. Get Up, Stand Up, and he also did Buffalo Soldiers.
Oh, it's great.
And that was one of the things with Bob Marley. A lot of his songs had very strong messages. Like I think Buffalo Soldiers referred to I think that was the Indians who were used as sort of cannon fodder. The American Indians who the military they used as cannon fodder, and these poor buffalo soldiers going out. I think that was a lot of his songs had really strong messages in them, which musicians continue some musicians continue that today, but plenty don't. As an art form, it's an extraordinary vehicle to go propagating messages. But a lot of the time these days it's nothing to do with the message. It's just how we're going to sell the most tickets to our next event or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times these messages are now being obscured because every song he wrote was about revolution. One of my favorite songs of his is called War, and the opening lyrics are, "Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, everywhere is war." So that gives you the empowerment around the world. And they asked Bob once, they said, "Hey, what would you think if you looked out and you just saw all these white people with dreadlocks?" And he said, "Me feel great." So for him, it was an accomplishment to use music as a culture social blender to bring everybody together, to remind each other that we're all one group of people. We're not really divided by our nations and our differences. So it's been a life-changing event for sure.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else? So we've got to briefly touch on what happened last night.
Oh yeah.
Crazy night, eh? So for those of you who don't know, so we're in the Philippines, and so I come here every year for a month to train up people here on illegal fishing. And this year, luckily again, we got these 4 Navy SEALs, and so we spent a couple of days training them, and then we went out last night on patrol. So we've got a boat that we've sort of hired here, and we're working with a non-profit, with a couple of guys from that team. Anyway, so we've got these 4 Navy SEALs, heavily armed up, and we went out on patrol, right? And so we're going at, there's a marine protected area out here that is the main reason for going about. There's also so much destructive fishing here. Last night was supposed to just be a recon mission. Really, my initial plan was that we weren't going to go and intercept any boats or whatever. And then we came across this boat that had these guys hookah diving. And so hookah diving is highly illegal here. So they have this compressor and the motor that normally runs the drive shaft going to the propeller, they disconnect the belt linking the two, and the belt then goes to a compressor, and then they have these guys with these tubes sucking them out. And so this thing had 2 divers on there. They were diving to 120 feet for 3 to 4 hours, and they're spear fishing. And they had, quite literally, they'd made these like a spear gun, this wooden thing shaped like a rifle, and it had these little bits of inner tube, and the spear was maybe about 1 meter long, and it would so it had a total reach of about 1 meter. Like the spear remained inside this mechanism. So these guys would go down to the bottom, and at night it's very easy to spearfish. Like those of you online who have dived at night, it's very easy to spearfish. And so they go down, especially amongst the coral bullies. The fish just sit and hide in amongst the corals, so very easy to get. And anyway, so we drove past these guys and we filmed them a little bit, and we were able to light them up with the infrared light. So we were probably half a K away from them, and then one of the guys who were there is crazy about drones. I'm not so enamoured with drones. They have a role to play in surveillance and that, but a lot of people think, oh, a drone solves everything. It doesn't. But anyway, we'd already had a couple of mishaps with the drones earlier in the day. He decides, I'm going to fly the drone, and the drone has all these lights flashing right. This is the middle of the night. So the drone goes out over the boat, right? And of course you can imagine you got 3 or 4 guys on the boat. What's this flashing lights? And they're 20 feet from us. Okay. And it's very hard to use drones at night. Like we used to use these Skylark military ones. We used them in Costa Rica on the first campaign. Get this, we had 3 drones donated to us, each 150 grand, and we had a pilot from. She'd worked for the US Army for 7 years, I think, as a drone pilot. So she was really, really good, and she still struggled flying these things at night, let alone someone who's not so experienced. Anyway, so couldn't find the boat. So this thing is sitting somewhere above the boat, but it can't find it. And it kind of gave the game away for us. So I thought, oh, fuck, let's go in there and board this boat, see what they got. So, but we already knew they were hookah divers. So we went in there and clambered aboard and went through all this stuff. So these guys are diving at 120 feet for 3 to 4 hours. Heaven knows how long their decompression takes. And you look at their gear, so their weight belt, he's got his scuba, his wetsuit is 6 layers of clothes. So he's got 6 layers of track pants on, 6 layers of tops, because they get cold and they can't afford wetsuits, obviously. His mask, heaven knows, I think it has a constant pressure. Like the mask, there's no way it would seal on your face. It's like one of those old school Jacques Cousteau round ones like this. So they've got those. He's got on his head, they put a normal torch and they wrap it up in electrical tape. Is the torch, and they have this metal thing that goes round your head like a crown with this torch come along here.
Homemade fins.
Homemade fins. So a piece of wood or fiberglass like that with a bit of rubber strapped on it. Like you've got to admire their creativity in terms of putting their kit together on a budget of probably $20. But I did walk away, and we busted two teams last year here doing the same thing, and in the end we just gave them warnings. Like the trouble if you start taking those guys in here, like it is destructive fishing, and they need to get on top of it. But the trouble here, there's so many bigger targets, and if the inbound facility gets cluttered up with those guys, then the facilities won't allow us to bring in any big boats. And so we're kind of, it's like I don't like the fact that they do the illegal fishing, but a warning told them to leave. The 2 we caught last year, I thought we might see them there again, but they weren't there. So the 2 last year we caught, we basically said to them, like, if we catch you here again, you are going to lose your boat, and you guys will end up having a big fine. And so, hopefully those guys won't come back. But sometimes you feel like you're battling the tide coming in, eh? So anyway, last night we spent probably half an hour on that boat, and the worst thing was, the size of fish, like little fish about this big with a spear through the middle. Like, in most countries you wouldn't. When we flew over here, this shows you how bad the fishery is here. So on the flight that I had between, and this isn't necessarily Philippines, this is probably Asia, the fisheries here are all kind of collapsing. So I was on the flight, and they've got a thing that has these little nuts and little fish about this. It's like a bag of peanuts, but it's got dried little fish in it that are about this big.
Wow.
You know, and it's sort of like, wow, we're down to the scale of collecting fish about this big. And, you know, I think the fishery here is collapsing, and part of it is destructive fishing. So anyway, I give a month of my time a year to come and help out here. I don't get paid for it. I don't ever get paid anyway. I remember there was a troll who went online. We've got tons of YouTube videos, right? And there was some troll went on there and basically posted on every single video. Went and put in a comment. You don't love animals. You just do it for the money. You're a scum-sucking bag of shit, or something like that, and posted it on all of our YouTube videos. Thinking, you know, he's under the impression that I'm a wealthy man.
I can confirm there's not a lot of money rolling around.
I think I'm a wealthy man in terms of I get to go and visit places like this and help out, and I know I'm very blessed to do what I do. But anyone who thinks that this is a job you would do to make money is clearly mistaken. But I ain't complaining about it. It is what it is, and I'm happy to do what I do.
Different type of
and you know, I'm lucky that I managed to drag guys like Erik along. who I think one of the things that I admired about Erik when I first started talking about him coming on the Amazon campaign, and he talked about having beaten cancer. And he said, "Look, this cancer might take me any day." He said, "I want to make the most of whatever time I've got." And you know, I think that's a really healthy attitude to have. You know, a lot of people who get cancer, it becomes just all-consuming, and it occupies your entire day, and I think that negativity around it, you know, it's one of the things I admire about you, was such a positive attitude. For, you know, you're walking around with a cancer stuck on his bum, you know, like you know, for a lot of people that would be all-consuming, and I do admire the fact that you managed to just jump over there and say, "Hey man, I'll come to the Amazon for 3 months. What could possibly go wrong?" Quite a lot, actually. Oh, the one thing I will touch on, we touched before on Angry Crew. We never got to talk about Angry Coffee. This is so. There's a video that we put up, and so we had probably the toughest one of the. I had 2 real tough nights on the Amazon. One was when I was with Joanna, and we did the voyage from where we picked the boat up. I took the boat from there back to Iquitos up, and it was a tough voyage. Eaten by mosquitoes, middle of the night, boats everywhere, circus. But the second one, we came in and set up camp, and all night we had to bail water of our boat because our boat had so many holes in it at that stage. And it was, I can't remember how long, was it half an hour we had to do bailing water?
Yeah, everyone had a half-hour shift.
And so,
rotating
so you get up,
24/7.
so all through the night, you know, one of our 4 or 5 crew or whatever has to get up and bail water. And we get every 10 seconds was a bucket that you had to bail out. So this went all through the night. So next day, very angry crew, right? And our routine in the morning is we will, first thing we'll try and get a coffee. So we would pull out somewhere off the Amazon. I would set up a fire, normally with accelerant involved, some petrol out of the boat, and we'd get the fire going, we'd make the coffee. But on this day, the beach was barren. There was very little wood. There was little scraps. So it was going to take a while to get the scraps. So anyway, I said to the crew, "Hey, can you guys just go out and get some wood?" And they're like, you know, no. They all just they were well past it. They were well past it. And to be fair, Erik was still filming this, and so we've got this video that we called Angry Crew, or might be Angry Coffee. I can't remember. But anyway, so our routine here is, so I sent Erik out the other day. He went out and bought some coffee back or whatever. But what he does is sometimes he gets up before me in the morning, and he has an instant coffee. And I feel like he's cheating on me. So I'm the jungle brisserite, but coffee's important to me. I have a few things that are important to me. One of them is coffee. And I feel like he's two-timing me. He got up this morning and he had his cup of instant.
As soon as I see you, I pretend like it's not mine, huh?
Yeah.
That's right. Because they wanted to get off the boat, and then as soon as we landed that morning, then nobody got off the boat.
Oh, dude, no one got off the boat.
Said, "Can you guys help me with some wood?" And they're like,
Here's something really. Here's where you learn about the volunteers or the crew that you have, and I've seen this 100 times. You give someone a really tough night like that, or day, or whatever. You push people right out of their comfort zones, and that is when the true character shows through of the person. And some people will step up. You know, and I've been lucky to work with some amazing people over the years who, you know, it doesn't matter how bad it is, they will always keep stepping up and keep delivering for you. But you have other people where, you know, I sort of, when the trouble really starts like that, you kind of have several different types of people. You have some people who will be a little bit like sheep, they'll sort of follow what someone else is doing. So if you get a bit of grumpiness, grumpy too, you get some people who will still think and still be rational and still go and help out, even though they're tired, even though they're knackered. There's a stronger level of motivation, and they tend to be the sort of people you want. There's others who you can sort of instruct, say, I need you to go out and sort that bilge pump, and they'll go down to it. So they're not necessarily thinking through the problems, but they will be able to follow your instructions, and those people are good to have on a boat as well. But the ones you don't want are what I call the flappers, and they're the ones who just sit there, bah, 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 bah. And the danger is you'll get a few of the followers who will start following the flapper rather than following me, or whoever should be making decisions or whatever. But it is angry coffee was a great lesson for me. I've seen it 100 times, and I will continue to see it. We'll probably see it on a few nights here. We've got the crave. So over the next month we're in the Philippines. So Erik's going to be creating some videos for you guys. Erik is not a sheep. That's from Elise.
Thank you, Elise.
Erik's going to be creating some videos. So I don't want to really discuss where we are, but we're in a very precious area in the Philippines that has a couple of very important marine protected areas here. And then we're going about 200 or 300 nautical miles from here on a series of patrols over a period of a couple of weeks. So there'll be a bunch of videos coming out from us over the next couple of weeks. You guys are gonna see those. I called them gangsters. These hookah divers last night. You wait till you see the video of this. This is the craziest get up you're ever gonna see. So anyway, I think we've kind of covered everything on. One thing we will cover. So, Erik, you arrived in the Philippines. You've never been here before. You arrived here probably a week ago now.
Yeah, about a week ago.
What's your impressions of Philippines?
Well, the first thing is everyone is so friendly and so sweet and just very. They like to take time and talk to you, and very beautiful country, beautiful people. Manila was insanely crowded and polluted, and it was kind of. The way the electric wires are just strung up, 70 or 80 into one box, and it's madness.
I'll post a photo of this, but they'll have wires, or so they'll have a power pole with like hundreds of wires all coming in and crisscrossing, and then a random wire out to this house, random, 50 to that house, and I'm sort of cracking this joke about, hey, my internet's not working, can you just go and rewire it? Oh my god, Manila's a tough town, eh?
It seems very overcrowded, and then once we come out here, we see this kind of lack of resource. So it makes a lot of sense that, it's an interesting place where you can see the cause and the effect of overfishing and of
going back to those hookah divers last night, right? The amount of fish they had, so they were basically nearly the end of their dive. They've been diving for 3 hours. And they would have had in kilos, I would guess, about 10 kilos of fish. So they've driven 40 miles in a boat. So they've burned a whole lot of gas to get there. 4 guys fishing on this boat, 2 in the water, 2 up the top, keeping the compressor running. So you've got 4 guys, they've burnt, let's say, 10 litres of gas. There's $20 gone. They've got their boat, all their equipment, 3 hours underwater. No, probably a total of, it's a day's work, basically. A couple of hours to get there, a couple of hours to get home, 3 or 4 hours in the water for 10 or 20 kilos of fish. It is such a tough way to make a living, and it's this country is poor, eh? And you hire people for $10 a day, and I do believe the greatest issue mankind faces is overpopulation, and it's a really unpopular subject. Every time I go posting about it, it turns into World War III on the page. One day I had this lady who had 9 kids. And she started attacking me and saying that she had raised her kids in a very sustainable way, and they were very eco-conscious people, so it was okay for her to have 9 kids. And then she almost became sort of racist in the sense that the problem we have is the wrong people are having babies. And part of her argument was that she was a doctor. She wasn't a medical doctor, but she had a PhD in something. And so she sort of argued that she's the sort of person that should be having lots of kids because that makes the population. Well, she assumed she was better than normal people because she's got a PhD, and that's Nazi Germany going down that road. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I get asked quite a lot when I do talks these days. They say, give me one thing I can do to make the planet a better place, and I don't stop at one. But the first thing I say, have 0, 1 or 2 kids, but any more than 2 children, and you are destining the future generation. you know, and for me, highlighted by Manila. You go to Manila, in fact, just about anywhere in the Philippines, there are so many people here. And you get into, you know, I've been through the remotest jungles in the Philippines. They are full of people, completely full of people in there. You know, and they're doing logging and a bit of poaching and wildlife spraying. So I care about that. I care about the animals, and I'd rather people weren't living in there. But it's very complex here because these are poor people, and they're all just eking out a living. And so, you know, I don't want you guys thinking that I don't like the people here. They're amazing people, and I don't like poachers, and I don't like people who are destructive fishing and whatever. But it's very complicated, and the biggest problem we have is too many people. We're already at 7.5 billion, heading for at least 10. How are we going to? Where's all the fish? So Philippines population in the 50s was 25 million. It's now 110. And I think in 2050, not that far away, it's going to be 150 million people. How are they going to keep feeding them?
It's amazing. I mean, it already seems like it's packed. You know, there doesn't seem like there's any more space for anybody to join.
I see we've got Cal Lehman online. I wonder if that eel has turned up. I've been out to a place to try and film the eel. And it always turns up there, except when I turn up, and the eel disappears. It didn't come out, but anyway, I think we're going to call it quits with that. Thanks to Erik for being so open about your cancer and what you've done to and your weight loss and stuff. So you're at 210 pounds now.
210? Well, I might have lost some. It's really hot out here.
Here's something. So he's diet is vegetarian, right? If you want to lose weight, come to the Philippines and run a vegetarian diet. So we have a local lady who comes in and cooks us all meals, but it is tough to be a vegetarian here, right?
It is.
So anyway, it's like compulsory. It's compulsory weight loss. My advice to people wanting to lose weight: you got to be hungry for about 2 to 3 hours a day. Erik, I'd suggest is hungry all day.
Yeah, a little water, a couple apples, it's good.
I see Cal Lehman just saying yes, Troll is still there. So
hey mom, that's my mom.
Who is it?
My mom.
Sally?
Bottom. Yep, Sally.
Oh,
hey,
Sally.
Mom.
You raised an amazing boy, Sally. He's an extraordinary man. You know, I get to work with a lot of very talented people, and this guy's one of the best that I've worked with. So you did raise a man with an extraordinary attitude. So well done on that. We just stop there. I don't want to praise you too much.
Yeah,
I don't like praising people that leave. Then they get a bit uppity on you, and then they start demanding you get paid or something.
I want my own trailer.
Anyway, thanks for coming in, Erik. Thanks everyone for tuning in and commenting. Feel free to go sharing this and our podcast in future. So we are going to put them on our YouTube channel and put links on our Facebook page and stuff. So if you miss it live, you can go and watch the version that has good audio from these guys here. This was the big investment we made for this campaign was these mics. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll be back here in a week. And we have great tales of the patrols with our 4 Navy SEALs that we've got to hang out with here.
Yeah, can't wait.
I'm going back to bed. I only had a couple of hours sleep last night. We're going to go. If you're thinking we look tired, it's because we got back a few hours ago, a couple of hours sleep, and then had to get up and go doing our podcast. We tried to time it around the light. You'll see now my head is like a beacon. We've got 2 beacons there. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again.
Hi guys.
Erik, Elise, she says, Erik, call me when you get back to the States. It's going to be a while away.
I'll message you on Facebook. Maybe we'll talk there.
All right, take care.
Bye, Elise. Bye, everyone.